Oh, it was wonderful. I lived on the ocean, by the ocean, and we had huge waves, and when we had high tide and the huge waves, my dad would go up and put big pieces of wood over the picture window that had knotholes in it so we could see through, because the waves would break on top of the house, and we had shells on top of the house because the waves broke there. And then my dad built us a cute little playhouse that Deanie and I played in. We had, and we also raised rabbits, and Deanie and I took care of the little rabbits, but then we ate them, and that was very hard. But that was the time when there was a lot of, we had coupons for meat, we had coupons for shoes and butter and gas and sugar, so we just, did it. We rode a bus that came right to the door, and I was always late until Mr. Perry, who was a bus driver, would yell, "Mary Jane, Mary Jane," and I'd go running out there. Well, finally, I'd go running out there. And I remember one time going to school. It was in Huntington Beach, which was farther from Sunset Beach, and on a highway. And it was very, very, very foggy. And Mr. Perry had one of the high school boys walk on the white line so he could see if he was on the road okay. It was very scary. And then we almost got to Huntington Beach, and if it was Christmas time, they had well drillers that went up and down, and so they dressed them like reindeer. And so that was always a big treat when that came along. Well, we had two lots. One house filled a lot, and the other house had a patio and a backyard, which later Dad and Mom built a house for Grandma Cookie, and back on that back lot was our playhouse, and then behind that was where the rabbits were. At that age, it wasn't such a big deal. That was just the way it was, and it wasn't discussed. Mm-hmm. But I remember one time my dad worked for Ducommun Metal and Supply or something. It was a big company that serviced the Navy ships in Long Beach Harbor. And he had a very large catalog, but he'd get calls in the middle of the night that they needed something. And he'd say, "Now, okay, you son of a gun, I'll get it there." And so I was waiting to say goodnight to him, and I said, "Well, good night, you son of a gun." And he said, "Don't you ever say that to me." I got in big trouble. But he was loved by all those people, because he'd been there forever. But the embarrassing thing was that his name was Richard Alden Tornquist, and on his briefcase it was Rat. Mm-hmm. And I swore I would never change. I would never have children and have their initials spelled Rat. In elementary school, oh, I don't remember. Oh, in high school it was Janine. Mm-hmm. They call her OJ, but she was my best friend in high school. We just saw things the same way. We didn't think it was all that important to be spiffy. We just wanted to live life. She took care of her family, it was a large family, and she was, I liked her values. Mm-hmm. Our values met very well. Oh, Mr. Shuey, he was wonderful. He kind of adopted me when I was a freshman because I had braces on my teeth, and a lot of kids didn't have them. That wasn't fashionable in those days. And so he kind of adopted me, and he let me keep score at the track meets, at the basketball games. He'd give me all kinds of wonderful things to do, and if ever he needed anything, boy, I was ready to help him any way I could. But I also loved my music teacher, Mrs. Harlow. That was high school. That's what you're talking about. Yeah, she gave me a lot of opportunities. A lot of opportunities. So. Citizenship. Yeah, we had all kinds of projects. Help Cap Shuey and to sing. Yeah, I love to sing. Yeah, I was nominated for May Queen, and it was a joke. And these girls, the other girls were all cheerleaders and song leaders, and and they thought it was really funny that I was nominated because how, ugh. And so that was sad, but when it came to the May Queen dance, guess who got May Queen? And they were all in white because there was a purple gown, and I had a coral gown because I knew I wasn't going to get anywhere, and it didn't matter. It meant a lot to me that I was nominated, even though they treated me meanly. Anyway, I won. Yeah, that was pretty special. That was the student body that voted for that. So the thing was that they were kind of all snotty to the underclassmen too, and they wouldn't, and I was the other way. Well, it always does, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
You get what you give. A doctor. They told me I was emotionally not capable of handling that. That was the time of the Depression and all the, I didn't live through World War I, dear. Yep, what was it like? Well, it was sad because, you see, where we live, the Japanese had wonderful fields of celery and one thing or another, and the fields were beautiful. And I had friends that were Japanese, and they were all taken away to camps, and it was very, very sad, very sad. And in my school, not only that problem, but not really related to World War II, but there was such a variation. A lot of Mexicans. We had the Japanese until they went to the camps, and then we had the oil well owners, and then they had the beach guys, I was a beach brat. And so they had to have a very strict clothing, what you could wear to school, and which was a good idea, but it was strange. And it was totally, we had no blacks in our school. We did have Mexicans and Japanese and Caucasians, so interesting. The school's still there, it's beautiful. No. Oh, Mrs. Harlow. I was offered a full scholarship to USC, mainly because my boyfriend was an athlete and they wanted him to go to USC. So he was a twin, and both of the girlfriends were given scholarships to go so that the guys would go. Well, my parents didn't want me to go to USC, so Mrs. Harlow wanted me to go to College of Pacific because it had a conservatory of music and was well established, and she dreamed of me being an opera singer. And at that point, when they told me I couldn't be a doctor, that appealed to me too. That'd be fine, I'd like to be one. But you couldn't major in opera singing, so I majored in music therapy for 1 year. That's all I had. Well, Dad and I got married, and I had to go to work Oh, no.
Okay, all right.
I don't remember concerts. I remember, I was in The Marriage of Figaro, and I performed in that, but I don't remember any other concerts. We went to, Dad took me to San Francisco, and I got to see a bunch of jazz groups there, and that was really fun. Black Hawk. We went to the Black Hawk, and oh gosh, he will say different names. I'm not sure. Gene Krupa wasn't there, but who's the trumpet player that's smooth? Anyway, yeah, there were some famous people there. No, I never did get to go to an opera, so I don't know why I wanted to be in an opera, except the summer before I went to College Pacific. I was in an opera company in Santa Ana, and I performed many different things. I did the Pirates of Penzance, did the lead in that. I did the lead in Pergolesi's La Serva Padrona. I did the lead in Carousel. So that was a busy summer, and it got me ranked up to where, yeah, I really wanted to do this, even though it was, just a county-wide situation. One at a time, but it was during the summer. Can I remember the first date I had with Dad? At college, you don't really have dates. There, we just met at the hangout, and just and talked and visited and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah, he was in choir. I met him there, and then he was playing on campus, like for outside roadshow thing, dance, where everybody could go and dance and stuff, and I sort of hung around the piano and made myself annoying. Yeah, he was playing. No, he was playing piano, and I was just batting my eyes.
I see.
Yeah. Oh boy. Well, it was really, really nice because we were married in the chapel at the college, and the I forget what you call him, but he was the figurehead of the college, and he had a white beard, and he always rode a white horse to school, and he married us, and the choir was up in the balcony. They sang for us, and it was very nice. Oh well, Beyond the Lord Prayer, I don't know. And then we had a quartet, I think, that played, and you don't remember much about when you get too wired, And then we went back to my dorm for a reception, and my son Figaro was there, and he was one of the guests. We were good friends, but he was a senior. I was a freshman. Mm-hmm. But he thought that was so funny. Isn't Marcelina his mother? I think. Anyway. Oh, Mom and Dad, and Scotty and Adeline, and oh shoot, what is their names? Opal and Gil, and Deanie was the maid of honor, and not many of my Huntington Beach friends. Oh, best man, I don't remember his name, but he was a buddy of Dad's, and but that was the last wedding that can't think of his name that he performed. So we felt very honored. May 30th. Oh, I could talk about a lot of things. About we left College Pacific and went to Long Beach. No, we went to Sunset Beach and we lived above a garage. And the little place was so small that we had to have a rollaway bed that we hooked to the rafter so we could open the door to get in and out. And we had a teeny tiny bathroom that just had a toilet. And because the roof was sliding, was pitched, and it didn't have a stove, but we had a little hot plate. And downstairs there was a shower that you would go in the shower if you came in from swimming, so that was our shower. And then we moved to Long Beach, and somehow we got a piano. Maybe it was the folks' piano. Anyway, we had it, and when we were going to leave the apartment in Long Beach, which was upstairs, Dad was going to bring all his buddies in and move the piano down the stairs. And they decided it was too heavy. They had to take the harp out. And so they were starting to take the harp out, and they didn't end it. I just said, no, let's just stop. I'll ask Mom and Dad if they'll have it moved for us. So I found out that if they'd gone a few more screws, that would have gone through the entire apartment and down a block. There's so much pressure on that, so that was scary. Then we lived in Faculty Row, which were 5 little houses on 3 lots. And we lived there for quite some time in Sunset Beach. And the kids all were raised there except Jonna and Heidi. The boys were raised there. And on the beach, they'd go out on the beach. Then we'd get in the little red wagon and we'd go down the road to Grandma and Grandpa's house. And and I hung up my clothes across the street. We had a clothesline, and so I'd do those before anybody woke up, and I'd always match them so all the things matched going down. That was so much fun. I was so proud of my laundry. And then we went to Scotty and Adeline's. We went there a lot, and I was very pregnant with Jonna, and we went. They had a pool in Ventura, not at their house, but at a community center. And so I was swimming, and I guess I was pretty pregnant. 8 months, I think, and the high school let out, and all these high school kids came. And I said, you guys want to race? And they said, sure. I said, okay. So we raced and swam back and forth, and I had Jonna the next day. Not a good idea. Don't recommend that. Anyway, I went back. While we were there, Dad and his friends had moved us from the little Faculty Row house to a house. And so, what did I want to tell you? We just came home and made do with as well as they had it organized, and then I went to the hospital. And so then Dad was let go, one of the last ones at Douglas, because the economy was failing, and a whole lot of people, but since he was in quality control, which is the end of the line, those people were let off at the end. And so all of this tract were mostly all Douglas people, and all of their houses were for sale because they had no income. So that was a tricky thing when he got accepted at Upper Iowa University to try to get rid of that house, because they were all for sale, you know. But we did, and he finished his degree, and he went to USC for a year when we were still in Long Beach at the apartment. And the sad thing was that he studied to be a teacher or a professor, and at the end of his 4 years, he went in to get scheduled to student teach, and they said, well, California does not certify cripples. And this is after. Now, why no one brought that up along the way, I don't know. But he played gigs to make money, and we both worked at May Company. It was a struggle. He worked at a music store in Long Beach, but we made it. It was cool. I mean, I couldn't believe it because I'd never really been in snow, and it was just magic. And I wrote tons of letters about how beautiful it was and how exciting. No, it was very exciting, very exciting. Yeah, I didn't miss Southern California. Not that there was anything wrong with it. It was just such a nice new adventure, and it was a tiny town like Sunset Beach, which made it friendly, you know. Well, you know, when you study the geography of the United States of America, when you think of the Midwest, it's flat, and that's where they grow corn, and it's just flat, and I thought, okay. And, well, it was gorgeous where we were in Fayette. I mean, there were hills and trees. We never had trees in California. If you wanted to buy a house that had a tree on it, you paid $1,000 more because it had a tree on it. And there it was surrounded by trees. And no, it was, I had no idea, except I was excited about going to Iowa because of their pork chops, because we had an Iowa pork shop in California, and that was the place to get pork because it was the best. And the pork in Iowa was awful. So that was a big disappointment. And I would not eat anything but best food mayonnaise. I mean, that was the only kind I would like. And they didn't have best food. It was called Hellman's here. And so that was a shock. Well, what am I going to do? I can't make potato salad. Oh, that was part of the World War, after World War II, when I think, was it Korea next? Or maybe, yeah. I mean, the draft was going on, and you guys were like 14 and 15 years old. I'm thinking, well, you know, that isn't right. Yeah.
Okay, so that jumps the gun. But go
No,
ahead.
I don't remember where we were. Yeah, we just were trying to get you away from the draft. Yeah. Well, I was teaching 6th grade. I had no idea what to do because I wasn't trained to teach regular school, and I had to go at night to take elementary education in addition to teaching 6th grade, which I found out is not a very good grade. Anyway, I had a nice, huge class, and one of the mothers said, I don't have much, you know, could I come and help? I mean, could you use some help? And I, oh yeah, come ahead. And that was Mary Hall's house. And she'd come every day, and she'd sit with the kids. I had so many reading groups, and she just sort of policed it while I could work with smaller groups. And then one day I took her home, and in fact I took her home most of the time, all the time. I don't know how she got there. I never knew that. And met Ralph, and we decided we'd go out together, the foursome, and then it just got crazy because he wanted to put in a drain thing in the barn where you put concrete sloughs for the for the cow poop. And so Mary and I would milk the cows, and Dad and Ralph would work in the barn, and all the kids had chores. I mean, they were up at 4, the older ones, middle-aged, middle group, out bringing the cows in. The older ones were dressing the little ones and making breakfast. And and Mary and I were in the barn. So that summer was really brought us close together. Okay, the red house was up on a hill. It was really little. It had 2 bedrooms and a back porch, and the back porch is where my boys stayed, and they had a triple bunk, and the 2 closets that are in the boathouse now, and the girls had a bedroom and we had a bedroom, and but it was way up by itself on this little hill, and down below people had horses, and we got a couple horses, ponies, and one didn't like anyone but Stuart. It was really spooked because it had been born in the corner of the field during a storm, and it was really a nervous little pony. Not mean, but he was gray, and he had a flat top going down the back, but he didn't like anybody but Stuart. Then that was Sultan, and then Sinbad. No, he was Sinbad. And then Sultan was a pretty blonde horse with a beautiful mane, and he was real friendly. But we decided that was too crowded finally, and there was this, I don't remember how we found out about that house, Pooh Corner, but it was out in the country, and that was really nice. We thought that'd be great for the kids, and there was a barn, and it had been a horse barn, so it had the split windows, and it was a nice place with a stream and rhubarb plants, and we had rabbits, a couple of rabbits, and Stuart said that the ponies and the rabbits needed to be inside the house because it was too cold outside. They belonged in the house. Well, we didn't do that. But Pooh Corner was, I thought, a magical place, and we still hear from the people. We had a bridge that went over the stream, and then right up the road was a church and a little store, and that was the town of Lima. Mm-hmm. And I hear from them every year because they are making money to take care of the cemetery and the church, and they have a festival. Mm-hmm. And so I stay in touch with them. That was kind of weird. At first we lived, we lived in Victor first, didn't we? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we lived in Victor, which was still a long way from Iowa, University of Iowa. And Dad would commute there every day. He'd been used to living in the back of a truck with a camper, and he continued to do that, but he'd be home often. We lived downstairs in an apartment upstairs, but I don't remember anybody ever living there. I don't remember anything about that, but we lived down and then I would commute to Belle Plaine, which was maybe 15 miles or so. And the school system there, because there were tiny towns, had an elementary section that was in one town, and they had middle school in another town, and they had the high school in another town. So you guys were pretty well split up, and everything went pretty well except for Stuart again. Stuart was sure that he was an alien, that he'd been put here to study our culture, and the junior high kids thought that was hilarious, and they'd wait for the bus to come from the elementary school to the middle school. Steve was in the middle school, but Steve had to stay there and walk all the other children home, the other 4 children home, and he was very embarrassing for him, but he did it anyway, and that was the year that he had this teacher that everybody hated, and they kept coming around with petitions that we should sign this petition and get her out of the school system. And we didn't think so because you liked her. Steve liked her, or Stuart liked her, and the reason he liked her is that she just let him sit there in the window with a guitar that had no strings on it and do that all day. And we had trouble in Fayette too with that, with problems like that. But the thing was that at the end of the term when they did the testing, he'd made more growth than he had in any other grade. But all the parents were really angry because you got to sit there and do that while their children had to work and write and do all kinds of things. Of course, in Fayette, see, Stuart had this habit of not going to school. We'd dress him up and he'd look real nice to go to school as well as we could. And he'd just sort of take a long path so he could check everything out and find little things. And by the time he got to school, his underwear was on the outside of his clothes and underpants, and his undershirt was like a cape. He tied the sleeves together and he'd walk in and he'd take over the class. Well, this is kindergarten. Well, look what I found. Isn't this something? I mean, anyway, the kindergarten teacher thought that was wonderful. He's always had teachers that decided that he was wonderful. So it turns out he was wonderful.
We'll talk about your teaching experience or
Oh, really? Okay.
everything else.
I was going to talk about Belle Plaine. Okay, well,
Didn't we talk about Belle Plaine?
not really.
Okay, well then let's talk about Belle Plaine first.
Okay, well, I got to teach at Belle Plaine, and Geraldine Dilly was also teaching there. She made sure I got there, and I got to teach 7 through 12, and I had some really good kids, and we did The King and I with some city people in town actually playing in the orchestra, got their own instruments out, and children from the elementary were participating in the high school. And what was fun was that the football players had to wear the diaper type pants, and everybody pitched in. All the teachers helped. It was a wonderful school because we were required to be at every game, every event, and then we always partied afterwards. But when a child had a problem, the parents got on the child. They didn't get on the school, and they wanted their reputation saved. And that's not the way it is anymore. So it was a really nice experience, except that I had to kneel on the floor in the principal's office because someone said my skirt was too short. And if it didn't touch the floor when I kneeled on the floor, then I was in arrears. But it hit the floor. But it was funny because, I mean, everybody was equal. And it didn't matter if you were a teacher or a principal or a parent or a child. You were equal. Expected to have the same values and to respect them, and nice. So that's Belle Plaine. Well, Dad had the choice of going to Guam or to Muncie. Well, in California, there's a madman Muntz who sells cars, and he's just really obnoxious. And I sure didn't want to go to Muncie, so I was pushing for Guam. But we went to Muncie, and he interviewed, and they were very nice. So we went to Muncie, and I was given a job in the junior high that was supposed to have a choir. I would teach 7th and 8th and 9th grade music, plus have a choir. And the choir was half boys and half girls, and it was in a very bad part of town. And so I said, well, I don't know, sure. Well, you're going to be really surprised at the salary, they said. And I said, why is that? And they said, well, I mean, teaching in Iowa and the little town, you couldn't have had much of a salary. And I said, well, it was a very nice salary. And they said, well, this is your salary here. And I said, well, that's less. And they said, well, that can't be. And I said, well, it is. And we had bonus pay there, too. The family and the community decided which teachers should get extra money. Oh, well, we don't do that. And I said, well, that's fine. I understand that. But it isn't a great deal more than I ever had. So anyway, I got there, and I had all girls and one boy in choir. So it took some recruiting, and the boy happened to be a pretty good basketball player, so he got the rest of the basketball boys in there for me, and we had a good time. They did some songs in Latin. They thought they were really cool once they learned them, but it was a struggle. But boy, they were cool because they could pronounce those Latin words and sing them and stuff. So, and we had every year we had a show, big show to do. And all my family helped me out with that. I mean, Steve would come in and play piano, and Dad would get the sound set up, and Heidi'd come and bring Everett, and they'd teach them some choreography for different things. And of course, the kids down there really ate it up. And I really didn't have that much problem, except at that school, we were issued a paddle, which we were to use if necessary. And they were ability grouped. The A group was a high learning group, and B and C and D, and the low one was they knew they were nothing, that they were the bottom of the barrel, and that wasn't real good. I mean, it made for teaching. You had a different preparation for each level, which was nice. You were reaching them. But the problem was that they knew they were losers. And so they'd act up, and that's the way it was. So I never screamed and yelled, and I never paddled. But I did write in my book, I'd just stop if I was doing something and somebody acted out, and I didn't even mention their name. I just put a mark in my book. And one day they said, Miss Scott, you should paddle us. Then we could start over. And I said, well, I can't paddle you guys. I mean, you just laugh. I can't paddle you. I shouldn't have to paddle you. Oh, please paddle us. I said, no, I can't do it. Well, then have Mr. So-and-so paddle us. He paddles real hard. And I said, well, yeah, that's going to make me feel good, isn't it? Well, we got to start over. So I let him paddle them. And we started over, and we got along fine. Is that sick? And that's the way it is. I mean, that's the way the parents treat them too. I mean, they get walloped really hard, and then they go to church, and it's a sad situation. I also had 7th grade twin girls. One became pregnant, and they had a big party because they were going to get a lot of money from the government. And so the other one got pregnant, 7th grade. And I can't even imagine what they went through. But, so there were good times and bad times. But there was a big gap between the college where Dad was teaching and that part of the neighborhood, of the town, and where I was. And that was painful for me to see. Yeah, then I went to the elementary and had a blast. But the elementary's so fun because the kids all love music, and they come in and it's a time for them to relax and for them to enjoy. And so that was easy and fun. And I was there for several years. And then I took a year off. No, I didn't. I took a year off before that, before I went to the elementary. I went to the middle school. And there I had a very interesting setup. What's it called? Music, something. But I was able to have each pair of children have a computer, and it was set up so that I had my computer and I could control all of them. So they were on two on each one, and the keyboards, they had keyboards, and the keyboards were divided. So they each had their own keyboard on the same unit. And we had little garage bands going, or we'd be listening to some, say, a Mozart piece, and we'd substitute a trumpet for a flute. Or we'd substitute different instruments, and they could see with the timbres how different that was. And but it was interesting in that group because these are kids that did not want to be in choir, did not want to be in band, did not want to do anything in music, at all. And but they had lots of rhythm and lots of know-how about it. But it was amazing because they did learn. We did go to fundamentals, but not too much because they weren't going to do anything with it. Oh, I know, but if I played something that was current, that I thought might appeal to them, but they didn't like it. But if I played Mozart, or if I played, that they would be real quiet. Real quiet. So I don't know if it was soothing or what it was, but that would really calm them down. They didn't laugh at it, or how they can be. I don't know how that started exactly, how we got together with, Hallery taught with me, and I don't remember that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but it was a close relationship. They kind of became substitute grandparents. They took us up to around Wabash, and what's the name of that lake? But they have a little cabin, and we could stay in. Right in the summer, they always went up there, and they'd take us up. Yeah, but he had made a Groco, is that right? Grogo thing that he made in the backyard, and dug a hole and stuck a can in it, and put wickets over them, and we could do croquet, and it would fall in the can. So that was a fun thing, and she taught you kids to cook a little bit. And one time they came to the house, and he just dumped his pockets on the girls' bed, and he didn't tell anybody. And I went in there and I said, "Where'd this money come from?" Well, none of the kids knew. And I said, "Well, but somebody better fess up, because you don't have that kind of money." It was all coins, and finally, we just really landed on the kids. And then Hallery Swicky said, "Well, I did that." So then we felt bad, but well, Dad wanted to rent a camper to go to California. And he said it would be $1,000, and we can take it for 2 weeks or something and go to California and pull it. And I said, "Oh, that's a lot of money." And so it sort of sat there like that. And I was watching boxing on TV after midnight, and there was a camper company in Lebanon that advertised that they had a camper for $1,300. And I thought, well, now if you're going to spend that kind of money. When Dad got up, I said, "Oh, we're going on a trip." And he said, "Where are we going?" I said, "I'm not telling you, but we're going on a trip." Okay. So we went over to Lebanon, and here was this little tiny camper for $1,300. So I talked him into it. It was a pop-up. And while we were doing the paperwork on that, we were going to do it with a credit union at Ball State. He walked around and he found a boat. And it was a boat that had been on the lot over the winter, and it was for $1,300. So he was really kind of wanted that boat. I said, "Okay." if you'll use it, because we used to give him boats to use in the bathtub. He could play with boats in the bathtub. So, but then it turned out that you had to have a motor, and the motor was also $1,300. So for $3,900, we got out of there finally, which was fine. They told us where we should go. We should go to Mississinawa, and it was really nice camping and everything. So we went up and we set up the camper, and it was very nice. It was very primitive. And then we were going to go put the boat in, and all excited. We couldn't get in there because some couple in front of us were getting married, and they were on skis, and the minister was on the boat, and we had to wait for them to take off, you know. We finally got there, and Dad launched the boat with us in it, and it started filling up with water because he forgot to put the plug in, and we're out in the middle of the lake, and the water's getting pretty high, and we get really scared, but we got the plug in and pulled the water out. He went really, really fast, and it sucked the water out, and then we put the plug in real quick. So, and then we married a couple up there that were involved with Grissom Air Force Base. That was quite fun. They were fellow campers, and then our friend, what's his name? Fritz. Well, Fritz was gonna, but every night, it's about an hour, a little over an hour to get from Ball State to there, and Dad had come from Ball State for the weekend, and Jonna and I were living in the camper, and the boys were all involved. They were working at the pizza place and everything. And so Dad would come up, and when he got there, Heidi was just, she wanted to ski. She wanted to ski so bad. He had to take her out, and she couldn't get up on the skis. And he'd, every weekend, and then he'd, more, let me try more, I want to try more. So finally Fritz came. He was a student of Dad's, and he said he had some guys from college in the boat with him, and he said, I'm not going to let her out on land until she gets up. So he took her, and they went, I don't know how long. She'd go up and fall down, go up and fall down. I don't know how long it was. And finally she got up, and she was so excited she wanted to get down. No, and so he took her for, as far as she'd go that she'd fall down. She came to climb in the boat. No, we got to do it again. So she did it again, and she went round and round and round, and finally he decided she'd probably been beat up enough. So he stopped and said, okay, come on in. She's climbed in. She says, I peed 3 times. And that's always embarrassed her. But that was Mississinawa. That was a nice experience until the motorcycle guys came in, and people with generators. That kind of ruined the whole way it was. But then Stuart and Sean had come up on, when they got done with work at making pizzas, and they'd come up in the middle of the night and spend part of the weekend to go out and ski. And so it was a nice experience at Mississinawa. But we couldn't live there. They didn't have property where you could live. So we went to Michigan and looked for places. The lakes were too shallow. We went to northern Indiana, and the places that did have lakes were so crowded. The houses were right next to each other, and it wasn't appealing. And then we ended up here, so it had everything. Okay, we got here because Charlie Brown, the big boat that we bought at Mississinawa, that had indoor-outdoor carpet on it, which everybody laughed at, but it was wonderful because Dad and the children could walk, and the grandchildren could walk around on it without slipping, because most of them are very slippery. And it's a cabin cruiser, a small one, and not small, maybe medium size. Anyway, we it was old, and we bought it there, and it ran well, but the trailer kind of wore out, and we were trying to replace the trailer, and the only place you couldn't just order one; they'd have to build it. Anyway, so the only place was in southern Illinois. So we decided, okay, we had to take the boat on the trailer to southern Illinois. So we were coming down this way towards southern Illinois, and Roger McConnell had a lodge in this area where Willows is. And so we thought, well, we could stop there. Well, we stopped there, and he wasn't there. He was in Brazil, and we went, Brazil? Why don't we know about that? Oh, no, there's a town called Brazil. Oh, okay. So we couldn't stay there because they filled up. So we found a motel, and it didn't have any air conditioning, and it had all the wiring on the inside of the wall. You could see all the wiring in an old-fashioned toilet with a water tank over the toilet. And anyway, we stayed there. And we had a flat tire, so they were working on the trailer, and so Dad and I drove around and looked at things, and thought it was kind of pretty here. So once we got the trailer repaired, we'd come up on weekends, and just like we did in Mississinawa, we just launch and stay the weekend on the boat, and then come home, and we do our lesson plans and stuff on the boat. Well, then we thought, well, this is probably a good place to retire because it's centered. We figured Phil would be in St. Louis, and we knew you weren't going to leave Michigan. And John said she'd come back here. She didn't want to be clear out there. So anyway, this was center. It's also not very far from Purdue, for all kinds of reasons. Bloomington, and in what is it in Illinois? The college there, Champaign, and it's close to Indianapolis, and so it seemed like a good place. You're out of the city, but you have good access. And so that's how we decided to be here. Oh my. Well, it should be Porgy and Bess from New York.
Okay.
But I'm not, I mean, there are a lot of memorable ones. Your 50th wedding anniversary, 50th wedding, your 50th birthday, that was incredible. Going to hear Steve play in by Cincinnati, in that area, going to Heidi's recitals. How can I say? I don't know. They all are memorable.
Okay.
That I produced? Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely, The King and I.
Okay.
Probably, you'll laugh. Was it The Merry Widow? Is that what I was in? I can't remember the name of it. No, it wasn't The Merry Widow. What is it? It starts with an M. Naughty Marietta. Sorry.
Okay.
That was me. Why can't I remember?
Mm-hmm.
In my adult life,
Mm-hmm.
not family.
Not family.
Well, I'm really enjoying Rockville and the people that I've met there, and we play bridge, and we're involved in a lot of activities, and it's really nice to have people. Never really had time to make friends anywhere. Some in Fayette. Not much in Muncie. No, really, here has been the most memorable. I guess leading my Huntington Beach friends, the kids I grew up with in high school, we were really close. We had quite a gang of kids that were really close, but they were all about 10 of us, and it's fun to go back and be with them, and that was rough. Greatest accomplishment. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I guess it was being invited to present a workshop at Indiana Music Education Association in Indianapolis, and I did boy, I have a hard time finding words, multimedia work that the kids created, and we presented it down there, and involving, we made films, we had movement, we invented instruments and responded to slides. They made a soundtrack out of found sounds, and then they had a score for their invented instruments. If they saw a certain color, they would do such and such. If they saw it again, they would do it twice. I mean, it was, they were very, very involved, and which is so important in middle school, because they don't really know what they're doing, and they're searching, and they were so involved in it that discovering things that they were delightful to work with. They were anxious to do things. For projection screens, we used the students lying down in funny positions, and we'd outline them, and that was our projection screen for things, and we just went hog wild. I got my bachelor's degree at Upper Iowa. I put in another year at Orange Coast College, and then I finished up at Upper Iowa at Ball State. Oh, I think when we went to Maine lately, well, that was a nice trip. We camped in a lot of different places along the way, and it was a nice trip. Okay. It was nice going to Germany, and but we weren't just alone. But here we were just alone. Yeah. Without Dad. Grandchildren? Gracie's the most like me, because she just wants to perform all the time. She wants to be the star. I used to dance on the tables. I was a show-off. She's a show-off. And I loved to sing, and I loved to dance around. I didn't dance very well, but yeah, Gracie. I was very active in YMCA, and that was a thing where you commit yourself at camp to improving your ability to live by your values, and I found that to be a wonderful thing, to have decided that I will correct this with Jesus' help. So I still swing back to that, when I'm... Oh, man. Before my life. I don't know. Before my life. Maybe someone I really respected before my life. probably, who's the gal that was deaf and dumb and blind, but the person that worked with her, I would like to know her. I would like to understand how she approached it and how that can be done. And a miracle worker, any miracle worker, I'd love to be around. Oh, I'd love to have had time with Gandhi. Oh, I would love to have done that. What did I get to do that I never thought would be possible until it happened? Oh my gosh, you probably have something in mind to bring up that question. I don't know, you start on a path and it goes every which way. It doesn't necessarily go the way you think it will go. And, I don't know. I guess water skiing is the thing that really shocked me when I finally got up, but I can't say that I really enjoyed it. Yeah, and that was okay. That was easy. But on regular water, it's
Okay.
different. uh, we've lived in so many places. We didn't talk about Carson Street. That was a fun little house that we bought because we wanted to be closer to the college for Dad, and I didn't want to pay the kind of mortgage we were paying to have the house in Yorktown when none of you needed to go there. So, but the thing was that then we got Dorothy, and then we got Mother, and we had to move out. So Steve and Brenda lived in the basement, and you lived upstairs, and it turned into kind of a student house. And so we went back to that after Dorothy and my mom were in nursing homes and fixed it up. And yeah, that was a lot of moving around, I'll tell you. And we never had a moving van except from California. Never. We hauled it from place to place. So probably always, I just always was fiddling around and arranging things and making something out of nothing. To me, it's a lot of fun to have something and then make it into something else and into something else, rather than going out and buying something and make it your own creation, even if it's ridiculous looking. If it's okay, right? It's okay. But I just realized that they moved that chest over and it's not centered, and so one of those guys, they're not centered on that window. I've got to fix that, but that clock's too heavy. I can't do it. Primary, you mean kindergarten through? I just played with the rabbits and played in the playhouse and made sandcastles and waited and went out and got shells and sometimes found money because money would wash up from my boyfriend in high school. Yeah, he was a football player and a basketball player and a track and Cap Shuey. He wanted me to be involved and do stuff like that. But I was not participant. I did swimming, and that was it. Oh, football. TV. Equal. Learning. No, teaching. I like teaching. I like both. No, I can't. No. All right, you know, I don't know who the first one is. I like Hitchcock. Well, I'll start with my dad. He was a very community-minded person. I guess I'm most like him. He was president of the Chamber of Commerce. He was president of the school board, which was in Huntington Beach, not Sunset Beach, but he was elected there. He wrote a paper, whatever, request to the state to return the sand to Sunset Beach, which had been washed away when the Navy put in a rock wall to make a safe place for ships. It caused the tides to erode and take out many houses on the beachfront, and it went down to Newport Beach to build. They were all going to put up condos and all this stuff on this new land, and he got that put through, and it took years to do, but they bumped all that sand back, and it was mainly completely through him. He was a really hard worker. He was very creative. He loved carpentry, and he loved landscaping and plants, and loved it. Very kind to my grandmother Cookie. Made a nice place for her to live, and made sure her flowers were taken care of. And then my mom liked being part of society. She liked to be part. Oh, my dad, even one of the teachers was going to be the matron of Eastern Star, and she had never been married. She was an old maid, and she asked him, because he was president of the school board, if he'd be the patron. And so he even did that. But he was Masonic. He was a Mason. My mother, on the other hand, liked being involved with different organizations, and she worked very hard at that. And she was very creative, very artistic. When we had our festivals that my dad was in charge of every year, we had a big festival, and it would last, I don't remember, but they sold things, and they made food, and they had pet parades, and they had tricycle parades, and it was a real community thing to make money to get a fire truck for our community, which they did. Again, my dad's doing, with help, but he really was the one that got things going. But Mother would paint murals for that, and do creative projects that could be sold, and was in women's club, and they did all kinds of good things. And she was in a club in Huntington Beach that Deanie belongs to now, PEO, which is Philanthropic Education Organization, and they donate money to the schools and so forth. She was very active in helping Deanie be May Queen for what is it? Job's Daughters. Very active in helping her do that. Very active in helping me, whatever I needed. Now, Grandma Cookie was an amazing person. She came to America. She was married to a Robert White, who was somehow involved with sewing machines. And he passed away when Mother was 3. And she carried on. She raised Mother, put her through college and so forth by managing an apartment house in Los Angeles, right downtown next to the theaters. and a very large apartment house. And she had a small apartment there that was like the motel that we stayed at, you know, with the tank above the toilet and chains and things like that. Little kitchen, and she had a Murphy bed. She just had 2 rooms, a Murphy bed, and anyway, she did that. She was also very artistic, and some paintings of hers. Then when she decided to sell that, she bought other property. She was very savvy with her money, very savvy, and she bought an apartment. I don't know what you'd call it. I think there were 4 units that went back, just went straight back, and she stayed in the back one, and she rented the 3 out. It was near USC, had a little park. And when that became just too much for her, Dad built her this house by their house on the extra lot. And she just was amazing. She said she loved to play canasta, so we'd play canasta. And when I was going to get married, she said, "Oh, I'm really glad that that you found someone that you'd like to spend your life with." And she said, I should have remarried, but at this point, I don't want to take care of some dirty old man." Anyway, she was wonderful. My sister, oh, she is something else. She is such a perfectionist. She loves to look nice. She loves to be in a nice situation. She's not crazy. She's very resolved. I'm sure I embarrassed the life out of her the whole time we grew up because I was so obnoxious. I mean, I just had to be involved in, jumping around and being stupid. She was a usherette for all the concerts that we had and so forth. She was in charge or involved in the uniform committee that policed what we wore, and she was very proper, honored queen. She's very proper. We're just opposites, which is kind of neat. So Adeline and I were like sisters. She always, people would say, "Oh, you're sisters," when we go through the grocery line. "Adeline, is this your sister?" She said, "No, that's the mother of my grandchildren." She was just so, and she loved to have Grandma Cookie there. She'd ask me to bring Grandma Cookie with the kids up. We spent many weeks up there with Adeline, and I'd bring Grandma, and she just loved having Grandma there. So, amazing lady. Scotty, very interesting. Opie was a love. Oh, she's just a love. And that's all I have to say.